Okay, so then let's start on the critical reading lecture, step two. And before starting step two, I'd like to briefly summarize what we've learned in step one. Okay, and last week, first, I was talking about what is understanding. Okay, and maybe when you read something, you can find each individual component of the contents, like a word or keywords. Okay, but by collecting these notions or concept, you can imagine the entire view. It is called as totality. And once you got the totality, you can find out which part you didn't understand. Okay, so awareing something you didn't understand is actually really the first step to understand something. And actually, this is one of the hardest steps. So if you cannot do it, tentatively, you can forget about it. Gradually, you can find which part you didn't understand. Okay, but always at the first step, assume you didn't understand. And then be careful to find out which part you really didn't understand. This is an endless process to understand something. Okay, and then the next point, what we've learned is the relationship between the reading and writing, or input and output. Okay, here is a input, it's a reading, and here is the output. There is something in between processing. It's kind of understanding. Okay, and today I'm going to, in step two, I'm going to talk about a little bit more about this. But when I watching you guys, sometimes, especially the beginners, if they were asked to explain or summarize something, you just try to make a direct connection from the reading to the output. Okay, but you couldn't skip actually understanding. It's a processing. So first read it and understand it, and make your own expression, and talk to the others. Okay, and by the way, when I was watching the videos of you guys, I found some of you always taking a note. When I speak something, it seems you are taking notes, some of you. And actually, this is a very good process. When you take a note, you need to think and understand. Now, taking a note itself greatly help you to understand something, or to help you make your own view of the concept and also contents, maybe. Okay, so taking note is always good habit. And maybe you can select one of the notebook as a research, your own research and study note. And take memo for anything in a single notebook. And it greatly help you to understand whole things in the world. Okay. And then I first summarize the 5 steps. And last time was step 1, finding unknown words. And today I'm going to talk about colorizing the paper. It's a kind of, say, awareing the important point and the unknown point in the paper. And step 3, might be next week, is in step 3, I would like you to understand the generalized structure of the paper, the research papers. Okay, and step 4 is how you can read the paper in details, scientific paper in details. And a final step is critically read the papers. It's a kind of constructive process. So step 1 to step 4 is to reading and understanding. Okay, the step 1 to step 4 is something like here. And step 5 is this part. You can add something by reading the papers. So it's the first step of the research. And that's the goal of this lecture, final goal of this lecture. Okay, and in step 1, what I talked is the first step. Okay, just a reminder. I first talk about using ruler, okay, to read. And the second step is finding unknown English word. And if you find it, pencil it with circle to highlight it. And then check the dictionary. And also aware the word classes, noun, adjective, adverb, verb. Okay. And that was really the first step last time I've taught. And then today, I'm going to talk about the step 2. Step 2 is colorize your paper. Okay. Colorize, what did I mean colorize? Is classify the sentences or words by mainly its importance. This is something I'm going to talk today. Okay. And then what I want to introduce to today is this kind of markers. Okay. Surely you can buy it in China. It's just a color marker, and you can highlight it. And I normally use 4 colors. Okay, and when you read the paper, you can highlight. You can highlight the sentences and words by using 4 colors. But each color has its special meaning to me. Actually, I've defined it. And today I forgot to make that say the paper shooting studio. The last time I've used. So I'm going to use the iPad. Okay. This one. Again, this example. Andy Yun, 2003. Okay. So normally I'm using 4 colors. One is yellow, right? And the second is green, and blue and orange. Or in the iPad, I'm using brown. Okay. Then let's summarize the meaning of it. That yellow is important. Okay. And green is more important. And blue is a keyword. And brown or orange is questionable or don't understand. So I'm always classify the sentences into these four. Okay. And this is the first one. So after this lecture, what I want you to do is going to the stationery store and buy the four markers. Or in the end of this lecture, I'm going to talk about how you can do it with the iPad. So you can try both. But as a first step, I recommend you to do it with a paper. That's the first step first step of anything. You can try with a paper and grab the point, grab the idea. After grabbing the idea, you can do it electrically. Okay. But by the way, the paper is something like an amazing device. So we humans have been using for more than 4,000 years, right? But iPad is only 10 years, less than 10 years. So actually, still the paper has a lot of advantages. Okay, so maybe you can first try the paper, and after grabbing what we are doing, or what you are doing, and what the important, then you can transfer it into the iPad or pen tablets. Okay, but the paper is a basement of anything. Okay, then now we have say 4 markers. Now let's read the introduction. Okay, here the introduction. Hold on, I forgot one point. I'm also using this green, this brown to highlight the section titles. If you want, you can use another color for this, but for the simplicity, I'm using the same marker to highlight the section title. Okay, and say highlighting the section title before reading the entire paper is important. It will give you the whole structure of the logic and the paper itself. But today, I'm going to talk about this for the next time. So this time in a step 2, just forget about it for the step 2. But in a step 3 and a step 4, we are coming back to this point. Okay. Anyway, okay, let's start. First, highlight the section title, introduction. Okay, maybe I would do it. In a step 3, I'm going to talk about in details, more details. But today, I'm just briefly showing what I'm doing when I'm reading the papers. Okay. Highlight the section title. The first is introduction. So in the introduction, you can grab what is the problem the authors want to solve. Okay, and then they show the principle, I see. And then in this particular paper, first, they are going to talk about optical frequency domain reflectometry. It's a basement, and it's a very early basement of swept society. So in this paper, they didn't use the word of swept society because this paper is practically the first paper of swept society, but they didn't use that word because on that time, there was no word of swept society. So it was before this paper was published before we started to call it a swept society. Okay. So, but anyway, on that time, they thought what they are building is a optical frequency domain reflectometry and its extension for the imaging. Okay, so the first principle is principle section is a optical frequency domain reflectometry, OFDR. And then it seems they explain its principle by using equations. Okay, and then I see they are talking about a signal and noise current. The electric current they are going to measure and its property in a signal and a noise. And actually, only from the title, you can guess something. And if you cannot guess what they are talking about, you don't need to worry about it. You can read carefully the paper later. Okay? But anyway, the first grabbing their entire flow, and it will ease the understanding of the details. Okay, and then they are talking about a signal to noise ratio I see. And okay, finally, experiment. It seems they are first talking about the principles and even some properties, the imaging properties, and then started to talk about the experiment. And the first section in the experiment is 3.1, optical frequency domain imaging system configuration. Okay, first they are talking about the hardware and the whole system configuration. And also you can check the figures if you want. Anyway, I'm going to talk about it in later steps in the lecture. And 3.2, okay. In the experiment section, they survey or they studied the signal to noise ratio and sensitivity. I see. And images. Finally, they are going to show images. Okay, images. And actually, they show these images. Okay. And finally, conclusion. Okay. By the way, I myself also checked the acknowledgement and the funding blocks. I'm going to talk about it in step 3 or step 4. Okay, now by browsing it, even in this view, by highlighting it, you can find out the location of each subsection like this. Okay, it will ease you to browse the entire paper. And also now you have in your mind, you have the whole structure of the paper, right? And then you can start to read. Okay. And first, you need to carefully read the abstract. Okay, but today I'm going to skip it. It can be a homework of you reading the abstract. And actually, the abstract of this paper was a homework of last time, right? No, was it the introduction or abstract?
Introduction.
Introduction. Sorry. Then you can try it today then. Okay. And then today's topic, the colorization. So let's start from the introduction. Optical, you can start from this, and I will do it as I normally do. I'm becoming a little bit silent, but watch the screen. Okay. Maybe some of you don't know this part, right? Embodiment. So we can make it brown, or say, actually, if there is some words I didn't know, I'm using like a keywords. And if that was not really a keyword, you can remove it later. Or if you're working with a paper, you can use a pencil instead of the marker, as I explained last time. Right. Like this. And a keyword, time domain OCD. So the finding this keyword is quite easy because they quote it. Right? But there are several other keywords. You can find it like maybe minimally invasive is another keyword. And for some of you, cross-sectional as well. So if you are not familiar with OCD, maybe cross-sectional is something like a new concept. Okay. And then it's a little bit too early to explain it. I'm going to talk about it in step 3 or step 4. So hold on. Maybe step 4, but just as Javier, this one. I frequently use this mark to clarify the cutting, my own cutting of the paragraph. So if I found the topic has been changed, I just try to mark it with this symbol. It will ease by writing it in a paper. I actually can make my mind clearly aware the topic was changed here. Okay, so far, this part, they are talking about the OCT in general, history of the OCT, this part, right? But they suddenly started to talk about the problem of the current OCT. So actually, the topic has been changed. The first one is a good word. The OCT is great, but here there is some limitation in the OCT. They started to talk about the good and bad, pros and cons. Okay, and then let's go to the next here. Relatively slow imaging speed, approximately 2 kHz. Actually, when you read it for the first time, you can skip like this part and directly connect this to this first. And then soon after that, you can go back to this. It will ease you to read that sentence. The relatively slow imaging speed of time domain OCT systems. However, okay, these are the connection word. Connective word is very important. You can highlight it. So this means practically they should be here, right? There was just they put for the decoration the however here, but in a straightforward way of writing, however can be here. However, the relatively slow imaging speed of time domain OCT system has precluded its use of scanning, blah blah blah. Okay, so actually, if you find out these words, connective word, you can highlight it. It's very important because they change the logic. And as actually pointed out here. So however means they started to talk about something opposite what they have talked. Okay, the relatively slow OCD imaging. By the way, precluded, maybe some of you doesn't know the word. It's not a difficult word, but you can check the English dictionary. It's a hamper, or say, how we can say, hamper, avoid, disturb to use or something. Preclude. You can check it. It's not a really difficult word. Simply you can check it. It's not frequently used, but it's not difficult idea. Okay. So maybe slow imaging speed of time domain OCD system preclude screening of large tissue volumes. Imaging speed and maybe sensitivity is a keyword. And even they give the explanation. Minimum detectable reflectivity is the sensitivity. Sensitivity is minimum detectable reflectivity. Okay, another fact, A-line rate, as the A-line rate increases, the detection bandwidth increased. Okay. And the sensitivity drops. Because the detection bandwidth increased, the sensitivity drops. Is their logic. Detection sensitivity, okay, as imaging speed has fundamental significance because of its relationship to detection sensitivity. Namely, maybe we can add namely here. Namely, i.e., namely. Okay, they will re-explain the same thing in more details here. As the A-line rate increases, the detection bandwidth increases. Okay, it's a causation. When A-line increases, N-line rate increases, detection bandwidth increases, and then it again causes the sensitivity drops. So 1, 2, 3 steps. Actually, sometimes I number the sentences like this. 1, 2, 3. Step 1, step 2, step 3. And maybe for you guys, another keyword is A-line and A-line rate. So maybe some of you didn't know this word. And actually, last week or 2 weeks before, there was some question, what is A-line, right? So if you don't know it, if you don't know this word, you can highlight it. Maybe this is a kind of keyword. Blue. And the detection bandwidth. Detection bandwidth. Maybe most of you don't know what is the detection bandwidth. So highlight it with blue. Okay. And the sensitivity. Sensitivity, yeah, I've already highlighted here. Sensitivity. Okay. The sensitivity of the state of the art. Maybe this is not a real keyword, but Some of you don't know this word, state of the art. The sensitivity of state-of-the-art time domain OCD system operating at 2 kHz. 2 kHz ranges between minus 105 and 110 dBs. Okay, this is a kind of fact. Most biological applications require this level of sensitivity for sufficient depth penetration and cannot tolerate reduction in sensitivity to achieve a higher frame rate. Okay, so here important point is most biological applications require this level of sensitivity. Is a core part of this sentence. Okay, we need to maintain the sensitivity of 105 to 110 is their claim. So even if we want to have, say, higher speed, we cannot reduce the sensitivity smaller than these values. Although increasing the optical power would, in principle, improve the sensitivity, available sources and maximum permissible exposure level. Okay, first keyword. Available source and a maximum permissible exposure or level, maximum permissible exposure level is another keyword. Okay, increasing the power improve the sensitivity, but however, and actually they use although here, right? And I frequently, by the way, use the symbol to clarify this point, this symbol. So maybe reading on a scientific paper is kind of easy for the logic, at least if you're accustomed to it. But like if you are reading extremely hard, say, books of the philosophy or something, I actually recommend to use these kind of symbols to clarify the author's logic. But you can use this also for the scientific papers. Okay, improve the sensitivity, but increasing the optical power improve the sensitivity, but available source. Available source means that the light source existing in the world. Okay, so increasing the power is good, but in reality, the existing light source has a limited output power. It's quite natural, right? This is one point. And the other point is this one, maximum permissible exposure is say, highest power we can illuminate the sample. If the power is too high, the sample is burned. Okay, so there is a certain safety limit of the optical power. So because of these two reasons, namely available source and maximum permissible exposure, the power, the light power we can use is limited, and it limits the sensitivity in their logic. Okay. And then this one is an example of the colorization. Now, fortunately, I didn't use the brown marker or orange marker, which I cannot understand or questionable. But if you have something, you can mark it, and then you can come back later for this point. Sometimes in a scientific paper, the author themselves were wrong, actually very frequently. So because it's a kind of the research is a hot area. So even the famous professors make a lot of mistake. And by publishing it, the community can find a mistake and we can discuss about it and then we can correct it later. So it's a step of the progress, the scientific progress. So you don't need to 100% and non-critically, you don't need to non-critically believe something written in a scientific paper. But if you find something you didn't understand or you didn't follow, mark it and check it carefully later. Sometimes you're wrong and they are wrong. Okay. Then I just colorized the first paragraph and okay, maybe you can try it by yourself. But at the same time, okay, the first you can try by your own method for the colorization. But here, I would like to I would like to explain how did I do it? Okay, which is what is the idea behind of my colorization? Okay, to explain it, first, I would like to explain the absolution and the distillation. Okay, in this student seminar, sometimes you are asked to summarize the paragraph. Okay, then what is summarization? The idea of the summarization sounds easy. So maybe you've been asked to summarize something for in your life several times, frequently. But actually, this is not that much straightforward. And you've already found it during this seminar, right? You've been asked to summarize this paragraph, and sometimes it's hard. Okay, here I would like to think about what is the summarization. In my recent understanding, actually, summarization has two categories, subcategories. One is distillation. Distillation, hold on. Let me check the spell. Distillation. Distillation. Double. Maybe Chinese word or Japanese word. So, are you guys using this word also in China? It's similar, something similar. Okay, but anyway, the first one is a distillation. The second one is abstraction. Okay, and this one is words. It can be used when you make a strong alcohol, like a multi-chew. Okay, so first you can make a weak alcohol, like a baijiu, and then you can boil it and only take out the alcohol and make a higher concentration of alcohol. So that distillation. And actually, you can find this word also something like Adby distiller on a program to make a PDF. Okay, So distillation, anyway, the distillation is picking up something important part and connect it and have a high concentration. Okay, it's a distillation. And then abstraction, like an abstract, making the abstract is abstraction. So actually the distillation and abstraction is not the same idea. Okay. To understand it, I would like to remind you about the first step, step 1. Input or reading. Okay. It's like a papers. And you can find out the several words, right? Or important sentences, maybe. Important sentences might be better. Important sentences. And then summary, output. Okay, it's a, say, summary. It's a short summary, like you've explained in the seminar. Maybe, especially the beginners, when you ask to summarize something, you picked up some important sentences and concatenate it, combine them, and make a short sentence. Okay, I think that some of you are mainly doing this. It's a direct step from paper to summary, input to output. Okay, this one is, I call it, I actually call it as a distillation. It's not a common word. The distillation itself is a common word, but it's not normally used to explain how we can read a paper. Okay, and this step is, I called it as a distillation. But as I've explained in a step 1, there is some intermediate step, is understanding. Right? So here you can build your own content word. You write the content of the paper here, and you can have your own view in your brain. Okay, and then re-explain. Re-explain by your own word. Okay, the key word here is re-explain and your own word. Your own words. Okay, distillation is a direct step. So you can use their words. But in this step, first, you need to build your own understanding and explain your understanding by using your own words. So there is one intermediate step. And this process is what I called as abstraction. Okay. Abstraction. So abstraction is actually, in Japanese at least, this one. or maybe in Chinese, I think you guys are using a similar word. 抽象 is the same. 抽象化, 抽象化. I'm not sure whether you are using the same word. Maybe I think you use the same word. 抽象化,抽象化,抽象化,抽象化. Okay. There are two different steps. And I'm going to talk about this abstraction in the later steps of this lecture. And today, as a first step, what I want you to understand is a distillation. Okay, this one is a first trial. First, you can do that to read the paper as a first step. In the early steps, you can think about the distillation. Okay, then go back to this paper, Yun 2003. I just highlighted the important point and the keywords. Actually, if you've asked to do this, maybe normally the student have a very hard difficulty to find out which part you need to highlight. Okay, there is no guideline technically, but there is one easy guidelines for this. You can distill this paper. Okay, then amazing point. I'm going to read only the part I've highlighted. Now, okay, OCT allows minimally invasive cross-sectional imaging of biological samples. One-dimensional ranging is provided by low coherence interferometry. Optical path length is scanned linearly in time. Okay, time domain OCT has demonstrated early detection of disease. Slow imaging speed of time domain OCT system, however, precluded screening of large tissue volumes. Okay, imaging speed relates to detection sensitivity, namely minimum detectable reflectivity. Namely, again, at the A-line rate increases, the detection bandwidth decreases, the sensitivity drops, and sensitivity drops. Okay, sensitivity drops. State-of-the-art time domain OCT systems at 2 kHz ranges and maybe sensitivity. The sensitivity of state-of-the-art time domain OCT system, I don't need this, at 2 kHz ranges between -105 and -110 dBs. Most biomedical applications require this level of sensitivity. Although increasing the optical power improve the sensitivity, maybe we can forget about although, but we can put that here. Increasing the optical power improve the sensitivity, but available source and maximum permissible exposure level represent practical limitations. Okay, by picking only the words and the sentences of highlighted sentences and the words, you can rebuild the whole logic of this paper or this paragraph. Okay, so if you correctly highlighted the important point, it should be read as so. Okay, now if the paper is quite well written, maybe you need to highlight almost all of the part. But even though maybe you can have a compression rate of 50% or something, maybe this case is a 50%. And if you are familiar with some field already, several things has too evident to you. So in this case, you can omit the parts. It is very evident to you. So in this case, the compression rate becomes higher, like a 20%. Okay, so the distillation is selecting the important part of the paper. And if you selected the necessary and the sufficiently parts of the paper, the highlighted paper can be a short version of the paper. And you can double check it. And even by double checking it, you can clarify the logic of the paper and also the content of the paper. It can be a good retrospective reflection of your understanding. So you can highlight it and you can read it again. The first read will take a very long time, especially for the new student and for the new field. But so this actually disturbs, this long reading time disturbs your real understanding. So maybe for the first read, you can concentrate on highlighting the important point. And after doing it, you can spend 10 minutes to read through the whole paper again by picking up only the highlighted part. And it will give you a very rigid and a macroscopic content and a structure of the paper. Okay? And then we are almost there. So I've already talking about a distillation and absolution. Distillation and absolution. Okay. And a section title, I've already talked about it. Okay, then the final real content of today is a blue, importance of blue. Okay, the blue marker I said is for the, say, keywords. Okay, and then how do you find out the keyword? And the keyword is quite tightly associated with something words you don't know. Maybe in my own experience, this is one of the difficult part to find for the beginners. Okay, especially non-English natives, we couldn't identify whether this word is something difficult general English word or real keyword. But if you don't know that word, or if you cannot explain what is this word by yourself, maybe this is a keyword. And you can check the dictionary, and that was just a very simple general English word of English, and the concept and its notion is very straightforward. You can remove it. It was not a keyword, but in any way, as a first assumption, you can highlight it. Okay. And for example, here, minimally invasive. Maybe some of you know that the invasive, right? The word of invasive. And the minimally invasive, then what does it mean? Maybe you know the invasive and you know the minimally, minimal is an adverb of minimal, right? Then what is the minimally invasive? If you cannot explain it, this might be the keyword. Okay. And another example, the opposite example is preclude. The preclude is not that much common word, but it's a very straightforward the English word. If you can check the English dictionary, you found, I know this. So you can forget about it. It's just a difficult English word or uncommon English word. Okay. And the other example, A line, is something I guess some of you didn't know about it. Before this seminar, you didn't know about it. We've used the word of A-line in the textbook several times, but before this, some of you didn't know about it. So A-line might be the keyword. So you need to highlight it, and you need to become able to explain what is A-line. Okay. And the state of the art is just an English word. It means a cutting edge or very new, the newest or something. And the maximum permissible exposure. The maximum, the permissible is something allowable. Okay, the exposure, maybe the exposure, word of exposure itself, but actually maybe you cannot explain what this exposure particularly means in this context. It's in this context, it's a light power means light power by which the tissue is exposed. Okay, so exposure, maybe this word, but if you cannot explain the meaning of exposure in this particular context, this means you don't know this word. And particularly this kind of word, particularly this kind of situation is a sign of the keyword. So you can highlight it. Okay. So the finding a proper keyword is a very important step to understand something. And then once you found the keyword, you can check it by several means. And there are several steps. The easiest one and the first thing you can do is a check dictionary. Check word dictionary. Maybe in our cases, most of the cases it's English dictionary, right? English, Japanese, or English, Chinese. And if you found, I didn't know this English word, but I know this word in Japanese or Chinese, and I clearly understand it, you can forget about it. It's just a language issue. But even you check the Japanese or Chinese, you clearly didn't understand the context of the word. Most of the cases, you feel you know that word because you've heard about it once or twice in your life. But most of the words have been heard, but you cannot explain. Okay, so in this case, you need to go to the step 2. So step 1, step 2. Step 2 is you need to check it with, say, encyclopedia, or in most of the cases, this is Wikipedia, for example. Or technically, in general, encyclopedia. Encyclopedia or something like a pedia. Like sometimes you can find out that the dictionary of physics, or dictionary of biology, or dictionary of optics, or something, right? So you can check it. Or some textbook are written to be used as a dictionary, like a Principle of Optics of von Wolf. Is a very large textbook of optics, but it was not intended to read from the beginning through the end. But you can pick up some chapters, so you can check it. And also 2.1, step 2.1, you can check Google it. You can Google it. Or maybe for some of you, you can Baidu it. And then you can find out some website explaining this concept. And especially for like a disease or something, there are a lot of websites. You can find a lot of websites that was mainly written by the MDs, medical doctors, to the patient. Okay, and also the optics or some others, you can find a lot of good explanations or the good description in our website. sometimes like a Nikon's Microscopy U is a website that was written by Nikon for the microscopy users, but it summarizes a very important concept of the optics and the microscopy. And you can find something similar to this. Okay, you can check it. Okay, this one is a step 2.1. And then, okay, step 3. You can check other parts of that particular paper you are reading where the same keyword used. Okay, by checking the multiple appearances of the same keyword and read the sentence of it, maybe you can imagine what this keyword means. So by this, you can observe the keyword from multiple perspectives, and it will help you to build your understanding of the keyword. Okay. And also, if you are a little bit accustomed to this, maybe you can check other papers as well. Okay. And then step 4 is really a practical step. Sometimes you cannot understand the keywords even by checking it, or you are a little bit too busy to deeply check the content or the meaning of the keywords. It can be very frequently happened. Okay, it's a kind of balance. So if you have an infinite time, you can deeply and deeply check the meaning of the keywords. But in reality, your time is limited. Okay, and also if you spend too much time in a single keyword, you take something like several weeks to read a single paper. So in this case, maybe at the end, you forgot the beginning. Okay, so in this case, you actually cannot understand the content of the paper itself. That is something you need to avoid. So then, if you find out some keywords, hard keyword you couldn't understand, what do you need to do? Record as you don't understand. And go ahead. Record and go. Okay, you shouldn't forget about it. So there is something you don't understand or you didn't understand, but let it go for now. You can keep it and go to the next. And then maybe later you can revisit it. After reading some other papers or after reading the entire paper or entire thing of that paper, maybe you can easily understand the keywords later. Okay, if you have some hard keyword, you can record it and go to the next. And after some particular time, after reading several more, you can come back later and check the keyword again. And sometimes it's quite easy to understand the keyword on that second visit. And if you didn't do it, you can check it again, or you can record it again and go to the next, and you can have a third visit later. Okay? The practical point is advanced course. Okay, so then the end of something the core part of today. But before closing, I just would like to talk about, say, use some very practical point of how we can do it in a pen tablet. Okay. So today I was talking about using a physical marker and a physical paper. That's the first step. But maybe you can try 1, 2 papers with this. But if you grab the real point of this by yourself, you can do it in a pen tablet as well. And a pen tablet has its own advantages. Like a marker, once you write it, you cannot remove. But a pen tablet, you can remove it. There is a pros and cons. Sometimes if you cannot remove it, you can be really careful to understand it before doing it. So anyway, my first recommendation is using the paper, maybe at least for a week or 2. And then if you got the point, and if you can make your own rule to read the paper, you can try the pen tablet. And like, say, what I'm using for this is good notes. Okay, this app is something I'm using, and I'm normally using it to read a paper. And also, when I'm giving this lecture, I'm using this app. And also in a YouTube channel of me, I'm broadcasting some Japanese lectures. But this one is also made by this app. And actually, I was frequently asked by the students or some the YouTube listeners about which app I'm using. So I'm just broadcasting it here. So actually, there are a lot of good apps, but Good Notes is one of my favorite. Okay, and like this. And actually today I was using it. Marker 1, 2, 3, and a fourth, four color markers. And also I'm using, say, like this to cut the paragraph. Like this. And also I'm writing the comments, something here, something here. Okay. Now maybe this guy, you can use this at step 3 and step 4 as well, and step 5 especially, writing a comment in a paper is the one of the important step of the critical reading. But anyway, I'm going to revisit this point at the step 5. Okay, and then that's it for today's lecture. And I would like to do your homework. Now, I would like to give you homework, say, and actually today was the last day of reading the first textbook, right? So we are coming to the conclusion of the first textbook. So maybe from the next seminar, I recommend start to read the papers. And then later on, you guys can select the papers by yourself. But as a first step, maybe you can try this one. The paper I gave you as a homework last time. Andy Yun, S.H. Yun, 2003. Okay, on that time, there was no DOI. It's not written here, but you can Google it. It's quite simple. High-speed optical frequency domain imaging, S.H. Yun, and Brett Bowman, and the other key member, Tiani. Okay, it's an all-star cast. Tiani, DeBoer, and Timia. Okay, it's really all-star cast. Harvard Medical School, Wellman Laboratory. And as a citation, Optics Express, volume 11, and page 2953. year 2003. Okay, Optics Express, volume 11, 2003, page 2953. So you can Google it and you can quite easily find it. It's open access journal. Okay, try it, and maybe for the next time, from the next time, you can use this seminar as something like a real practice of this reading method. Got it? Okay, that's it for today from me. Thank you.